more you listen, the more you know. This is Good Politics with Dr. Wilson and Adam Whiteman.
Welcome back to another episode of Good Politics. I'm Adam Whiteman here with Dr. Wilson. The only place where you can get allegiance-free politics, how a professor, any good professor, would talk about it in the classroom without an allegiance to a political party. Here on Good Politics. Today we're talking about some really cool stuff. I'm very excited for this episode.
All right. Thank you, Adam. What we're going to do today is we're going to get off the impeachment thing because we can always come back to that. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the economy. We got a lot of interesting news that's out there. The jobs report came out. The GDP numbers came out. There's China. There's talks about tax cuts. So this is a good time to really get into the economy. I don't know if you saw the third quarter number came out, but it was really pretty awful. Third quarter GDP came in only at 1.9%. And we're going to go ahead and give them the benefit of the doubt and just call it 2 because, 1.9. We'll just say it's 2.
That's total GDP growth in this last quarter?
Okay, so remember what they do with these numbers. They bring them out quarterly, and they don't actually tell you what the number is for that quarter. What they do is they annualize it, and it's also seasonally adjusted. So if the economy in the third quarter were like this right now for the full year, it would be a 1.9% number. So you have to translate this number. The bottom line is 1.9 is not a good number. And to hear that, let's listen to Kudlow. Play clip number 4.
Larry, are you prepared to forecast 3% growth for the economy by the early part of next year?
I am. I will. Look, we've had 2 straight 2% quarters.
Yep.
Soft, all right? We faced incredibly severe monetary policy headwinds. I wish they hadn't, but they did. I think that was a mistake. On the other hand, that obstacle is now being gradually removed. Probably the biggest headwind we have right now is there's still a recession in Europe. We sell a lot of goods manufacturers to Europe. I wish they would cut taxes and deregulate, maybe take a leaf from the successes of President Trump.
Okay. I remember there was a little bit of a scuttle between the president and the Fed saying that they weren't going to lower interest rates, right?
Yeah, we're going to get to the interest rate thing in a moment, but let's just focus now on this growth, okay? Because you'll notice a couple of things in that clip. Now, you know who Kudlow is. Kudlow's the administration's economic guy. And
he's the cheerleader for the administration.
Exactly. Perfect. I love that. I love that. And we're going to hear a lot from Kudlow today, so we'll have to remember that. Kudlow's a big-time supply-sider. He was one of those guys who was with Reagan, and he joined the Trump administration. Now, he was the one who was always saying things like, look, if you do supply-side measures, you're going to get a lot of economic growth. These guys were promising 3% growth. And to give him credit, after they did their tax cut, particularly the corporate tax cut, which had a very structural dimension, it ended up getting 5 quarters of good growth. But a lot of people said, look, your supply-side stuff doesn't work. This really ought to be treated like a Keynesian thing. It's just a sugar high. You're throwing a stimulus in there, and it's going to come back down to normal. It's just going to be like throwing a party. And in fact, that's what it's starting to look like. We've had 2 quarters where the growth rate is only 2%. They need 3% to get their magic done. Now, let me make a couple of comments on what he said. You'll notice that he blames it on the Fed and on slow growth in Europe. Okay. So that's one thing. But the thing that I took from that clip, which is really, really important to understand, is the person asked them about whether they'd get 3% next year. You'll notice they didn't even say in the fourth quarter. It seems to me like Kudlow, who's their lawyer, they're making their jury argument, their cheerleader, as you say. Seems like he's not even cheerleading for the fourth quarter. We don't have the fourth quarter in yet. So
not even hopeful. Not even hopeful for the fourth quarter. I mean, right. Fourth quarter is a big one. Christmas happens in the fourth quarter, doesn't it?
Well, yes, but the numbers are seasonally adjusted, so you can't count for that. Now, let me do something very simple because people know they understand that 3% is the target. Everyone understands that's what they want to get. The American economy, because it's so large, I think it's $21.5 trillion economy. The consensus among a lot of economists is that the days of getting 3% growth in that kind of economy is over, that the new normal was around 2%. And that's what Obama was getting. And so, we had this thing where the Obama administration was saying, well, we're plodding along here at 2% growth, and this is the new normal, and this is just the way it is.
Bad,
right, and it's not bad. And these supply-siders were wanting to say, look, you're wrong. You don't know how to do economy.
We can grow.
Right, we can get the 3. Now, let me do this because this is extremely important. I want to translate these numbers. Most people who get these economic growth numbers, they're business people, they're economics people, and what they're looking at is the future. People like me who are into political economy or into how presidents are doing and how nation states are doing, we're looking in the past. So what I like to do is look at the calendar year. I take it from January 1st of this year all the way to the latest report and look backward. I'm not looking forward. If you look backward, what you will find is the following. In the first quarter, the United States, we have a $21 trillion GDP. The United States in the first quarter got $185.6 billion in new value to its GDP. In the second quarter, it got $241.4 billion to its GDP. That means when you add up the 3 quarters, right now, Adam, to this point in this calendar year, we have $628 billion of new value added to our GDP. And I want to do
just in the last year, or
no, in the last 3 quarters.
3 quarters.
3 quarters. We got $628 billion. I want to do something to you. Is that a good or bad figure? I'm going to give you a test.
These are giant numbers. I mean, these are good, right? I assume this is. I mean, that's huge. But I don't know the total size of our economy. Isn't it in the trillions? So is
21 trillion.
21 trillion. Then added.
I would not go
600 billion.
Yes, it added 600 so far in the third. Now, here's what I would do.
Proportionally.
Remember this. Here's what I do. You look at the deficit. What is our deficit? $900 billion for the fiscal year. Yeah, the budget's on a fiscal calendar. We're doing a yearly calendar, so we're just going to have to go with that for right now because I don't have the numbers on the same calendar. But that's okay. Fiscal year calendar just ended. The budget deficit was $900 billion. Right now, up to this point, we only have $628 billion in new value, and it looks like the way it's going to end the year, we'll add another $200 billion onto that. We'll have about $850 billion. So what we'll do is
$850 billion deficit?
We have a $900 billion deficit, and it looks like we're only going to get about $850 in economic growth. So that means the deficit is larger than the growth.
Yeah.
Now, you see, what you want to do is have that reverse. That's why when they don't get their mark, when they don't get the 3% growth, they can't go through with their magic. What you have here is a situation where the United States, these supply siders always run deficits. From Reagan on, they run deficits. And the only way they can justify that is to try to grow out of the deficit. How do you grow out of the deficit? Well, in 2 ways. Your economy is supposed to grow at a rate which is higher than what the deficit is, so that on paper, for accounting purposes, you're getting more value. The nation state is getting more value than debt for any 1 year. And if you continue that out into perpetuity, then as we saw in the Clinton years, the deficit goes away. That's one of the things Kudlow tries to sell people. Oh, the payoffs are in the long term. The payoffs are in the long term. But that only works if you're getting a high growth rate. They're not getting that growth rate. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
They don't have the numbers to show for it.
Right. What I'm trying to tell you is at the end of the year, the United States is going to run about we're going to get about $850 billion in extra value added to our GDP at the same time when we're running about a $950 billion deficit. Okay, so that on paper, that's a loss. All right. Now, the other thing I want to do is I want to look at Kudlow's optimism. We cover these economic growth stats before, and we covered them in the second quarter. And what I want to do is go back in history now and play Kudlow on the second quarter, because you'll notice in the first quarter of this year, these people did get 3% growth. In the second quarter, they only got 2%. And then, people were asking Kudlow in the second quarter, is the economy slowing? Is the economy slowing? Listen to these 3 clips, and they're quick clips, and I'll take us through them, and then we can discuss it. Listen to his optimism. Let's start with clip number 35.
I think we're still going to maintain a 3% growth pace this year. That 3% number is not, by the by, contingent on a China deal that might not be satisfactory for American economic interests.
Okay, so you noticed there in the second quarter when he got only a 2% growth rate, he was telling people, listen, we're going to get 3% in the next quarter for sure. This economy is still hot, and it didn't happen. Now let's listen again very quickly. Kudlow, number 12.
So 2.1% growth for the second quarter. It's a step down from the 3% we saw first quarter, but still better than expected. How are you guys feeling about it?
Well, pretty good, actually. I mean, consumers were the hero. They had explosive economic growth, I guess, better than 4% at an annual rate. But I think the economy is really poised for a strong second half. as we cross over into the third quarter.
Ooh, yeah, we've got those numbers up right there, and he's saying he's putting his positive spin on this. The numbers weren't as high as we had hoped, but we're still feeling pretty good about it.
Well, what's important is I don't think it's important that he's spinning, because he's always spinning. What's important is that he's predicting. He's saying, hey, don't worry about this 2. We're going to get 3 the next time. And to hear that, let's play number 11 very quickly, and then we'll discuss it.
We lost some ground. We had an inventory correction, which took a point off. That probably bodes very well for the second half.
Probably bodes very well for the second
There
half.
is. I mean, they had 5 quarters of good growth. It went down, and he said, look, it's a blip on the radar. We got inventory problems. We're going to be great. And you'll notice it comes in at 1.9%, and he's not even selling us on the fourth quarter. He's not even selling us in the fourth quarter. He's punting the ball into next year.
Yeah.
So this actually is not something that they like, and they don't like it because they can't make their arithmetic work. All right, that's what you need to understand with these supply side.
I'm going to start selling all of my stocks right now. I'm liquidating everything.
Well, I don't I don't necessarily think you should, but we're gonna discuss that. Okay. The one thing I want to say about this is something that we heard in there, and I don't know if you heard it, but this is a consumer-driven economy again.
Oh,
in other words,
consumers are the heroes here, is what he's saying.
It's a Keynesian economy. The only reason we've got the 2% is that consumers have money and they're spending. That's the old way. That's the standard way the American economy has always worked. Consumers throw around a lot of money. And to hear that, let's play clip number 6.
But you do find, and when I go into the Target or Marshalls or Walmart or Piggly Wiggly, folks are there and they're shopping, the lines are long, so consumer confidence still pretty good.
Yeah, consumer confidence is pretty high. Consumer spending looks excellent.
Yeah.
The consumer is really holding up the entire economy right now. I think anytime you have your entire economy resting on sort of one leg, though, it sort of by its very nature makes it a little bit more wobbly and a little bit more vulnerable. And so I think what you'd really like to see is a situation where businesses get back into that game.
So what you really just said was that consumers are spending. It's a consumption-based economy.
Right. So and so what this is it's not a supply-side economy. This is a Keynesian economy, and it's being held up by the consumers right now. And what the important takeaway from all of this is that the supply-siders aren't going to be able to do what they want to do unless they can get higher growth numbers, because they run these deficits that are so crazy.
Your only source for truly balanced politics. Broadcast from Wright State University, this is Good Politics with Dr. Sean Wilson and Adam Whiteman.